Gentleman from the 33rd, Delegate Hanshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman from Braxton, Delegate Boggs, and I are pleased to have among our pages today a student from Leading Creek Elementary School, Chase Moss. Let's please make Chase welcome today.
Gentleman from the 46th, Delegate Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the back gallery here, we have Gary Lynn Shear from Lewis County, and we also have several dedicated firefighters from Lewis County. If they would all stand and the House make them feel welcome.
Lady from the 3rd, Delegate Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Fluharty and I are honored to have some of Wheeling's professional firefighters here with us today. In the South Gallery, we have Jason Milton, Tom Halushak, Mike Haney, Andy Joltes, Dave Harmon, Toby Bachman, Chris Haney, Nick Brown, Nate Vapner, and they are escorted by my favorite constituent, Grandma Ethel. It just doesn't look like she was able to make it up to the gallery. So I'd ask they stand in the House, please make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 47th, Delegate Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the gallery to my left, I have a couple of friends from Barber County, County Commissioner Tim McDaniel and County Assessor John Cutright. If they'd please stand, and if the House will make them feel welcome. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Caputo. Delegate CAPUTO, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. You wait, I'll get you. Delegate Caputo.
It happens, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
I was looking at both names at the same time.
Aye, not a you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Kanawha County delegation, I would like to welcome Jane Marks, who is in the West Gallery, along with some of her colleagues from AARP. Would the House please join me and make them feel welcome? Thank you.
Gentleman from 36, Delegate Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, on behalf of the Kanawha County delegation, I would like to introduce Gene Davis from AARP here to advocate on a bill that comes before us today. Also, we have pages from Ruffner Elementary. We have Josiah Bradsher, Aiden Ford, Malia Boggs, Allison Chapman. And we also have their illustrious principal, Henry Neerman, and his wife, Tammy, and a few other parents escorting them today. If the House will make them feel welcome.
Lady from the 50th, Delegate Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce one of our volunteers on the AARP, Gary Wick. He's down here fighting the fight for all the seniors. So on behalf of myself and Delegate Caputo and Delegate Ward, and on behalf of all the seniors in the state, Gary, will you stand up? Thank you. Please welcome me.
Gentleman from the 29th, Delegate Moy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all those representing Raleigh County, I think we have some firefighters here from our county. Rick Fisher and any other firefighters that may be here from Raleigh County, would you please stand up and let the House make you welcome? Nobody? Okay.
Gentleman from the 23rd, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce to you some pages here today from Sherman High School. Today we have Caleb Duncan, Lexi Elswick, Thomas Tincher, and Anna Halstead, and they're escorted by their parents, Tamala Elswick and Steve and Heather Halstead, who I think are in the South Gallery. If they would please stand in the House, make them feel welcome.
Lady from the 51st, Delegate FLEISCHAUER.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the delegate from the 6th and the delegates from the 51st, we have two people who came from Doddridge and Mon County, Cheryl Postlewaite and Athena Friedlander, for the Food and Farm Day. Would they please stand, and would the House make them feel very welcome?
John from the 17th, Delegate Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce several honored guests in the South Gallery on behalf of the CABELL and Wayne delegations. First, from the Huntington Fire Department, we have Captain Ray Canifax, Lieutenant John Nicholas, Firefighter Steve McCormick, and Firefighter Chris McGee. I'd ask them to stand. We also have with us Lauren Kemp, Tom Boggs, and Dr. John Tyler Roach from the Wild Ramp. That's a farmer's market in Huntington, providing residents with access to local food and a place to purchase the best bison in West Virginia, farmed by our own lady from the 16th, Delegate Miller. Will the House make everyone feel welcome?
John from the 26th, Delegate Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, on behalf of the McDowell County delegation, I have the honor of introducing two of the prettiest ladies in the South Gallery. If I'd ask that Linda McKinney and Jenna Belcher stand. Linda is the director of the Five Loaves and Fishes Food Bank in McDowell County. Linda works diligently to ensure that hundreds of McDowell County citizens do not go to bed hungry at night. And Linda, I thank you so much for that. The food bank is also pioneering farming on an aquaponic level. They are providing lettuce and other vegetables directly to Mount View High School. If you're interested in that, I would definitely encourage you to speak to these two ladies because they certainly know what they're doing. Again, if the House would please make them welcome.
John from the 32nd, Delegate Love.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On behalf of the senior delegates from the 32nd, myself, and the delegates from the 28th, 29th, and 30th, it's with great honor that I have the privilege to introduce to you some folks representing the Raleigh County Commission on Aging, seated in the South Gallery. They employ over 200 people in Raleigh County at the Raleigh County Commission on Aging. Mr. Jack Tanner, please stand, Jack. And also Tammy Trent and Terry Tilley, all from Raleigh County. Let's give them a big house welcome.
John from the 48th, Delegate LaQuinta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the delegates from the 48th District, we have the Liberty FFA in the West Gallery, Advisor Brianna McCullough, Russell Kendall, Donovan Hickman, Jacob Southern, Connor Wickland, Nicholas Plogger, Sean Phillips, Andrew Van Norman, Tori Jerome, Madison Hasselplug, and Ben Stutevant. Would they please stand and the House make them welcome? We also have firefighters from the Clarksburg and Bridgeport Fire Department. Would they please stand and the House make them welcome?
John from the 51st, Delegate Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the delegates from the 51st District, it's my honor to introduce two of the bravest men from Monongalia County, members of the Morgantown City Fire Department, Tad Dalton and Jason Nicewarner. Will the House please make them feel welcome? Thank you.
John from the 44th, Delegate Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is Webster County Day at the Legislature. They've got tables set up down in the lower rotunda. Please stop by and visit them. And we have here with us today, when I call your name, please stand, Jamie Westfall, who's the CEO of Webster County Memorial Hospital. And with him is his executive assistant, Angel Green. Next, we have Gary Weir, who is the executive director of the Webster County Economic Development Authority. With him is Scott Cochran, the superintendent of Webster County Schools. Next, we have Tabitha Williams and Patricia Williams, who are members of the Town Council of the Town of Cowan. We have Mary Ann Carpenter, who is a Board of Directors member from Camp Caesar. And we have Sue Weir, who is a teacher at Webster Springs Elementary. Would you please give them a warm welcome? Thank you all. Mr. Speaker, I have professional firefighters of West Virginia Local 837. President is Virgil White. Please stand. Vice President is Charles Wilson, and the Secretary is Matt Kessler. And Matt is a former Webster County person. Please give him a warm welcome. Good to have you all.
The gentleman from the 50th delegate, Caputo. Now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple introductions, if I might. First of all, we have some educators here from the Marion County Education Association. So on behalf of Delegate Longstreth, Ward, Summers, and myself, please welcome Allison Perry, who's the president of the MCEA, Kathy Jacquez, the treasurer, and Leanne Sayer. Would they please stand in the House and make them feel welcome? And also, Mr. Speaker, we have some brave men from the Fairmont Professional Firefighters Union today, the folks that run toward danger when we run away from it. They have a good delegation here today with Dave Whiteman, Mark Angelucci, Steve Ash, Mark Delbrook, Daryl Dawson, and Eric Wilson. Would they please stand in the House and make them welcome? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 58th delegate, Coles.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by our doctor of the day today in the back of the chamber. We have with us Dr. Sarah Sexton of Huntington. If the House will make the good doctor welcome.
Further introductions. Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2123, making the West Virginia Schools for the Deaf and Blind eligible to participate in any and all funding administered or distributed by the West Virginia School Building Authority. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2263, West Virginia State Lottery Commission Limited Video Lottery. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2542 relating to public higher education personnel. Reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2083, increasing the felony criminal penalties for exposing children to methamphetamine manufacturing, and House Bill 2486, providing that when a party's health condition is at issue in a civil action, medical records and releases for medical information may be requested and required without court order. Reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2585, creating felony crime of conducting financial transactions involving proceeds of criminal activity. Reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received. Reports of select committees. Messages from the executive. Messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Senate Bill 188, correcting definition of telehealth in medication-assisted treatment programs.
Message be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 222 relating to disqualification for unemployment.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 242 relating to school calendars.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Education. Resolutions, petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 2678, changing the amounts of pre-judgment and post-judgment interest to reflect today's economic conditions.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as listed on Chamber Automation System.
John 58, ask unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, that each bill be considered formally introduced, referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Each bill will be considered formally introduced and so referred. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2404, barring persons who are convicted of certain criminal offenses from acquiring property from their victims.
Question before the House is the passage of the bill. Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 33rd, Delegate Hanshaw, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 2404 relates to the disposition of property in circumstances in which a crime's been committed. Under our current law, those persons convicted of first or second degree murder or felonious killing of another are prohibited from acquiring the property of their victim. Under this bill, if adopted, that law will be extended to those circumstances in which a person has been convicted of an offense causing the death of an incapacitated adult by a caregiver, or persons who are convicted of abuse or neglect, or crimes involving financial exploitation of an elderly person or an incapacitated adult. I urge passage of the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 100 ayes, 0 nays, 0 members absent not voting, a majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2404.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Schott moves to amend the title.
Question for the House is the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2447, renaming the Court of Claims the State Claims Commission.
Question for the House is the passage of the bill. Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in 1967, the legislature created a court of claims basically to handle those claims against the state that weren't otherwise provided for in the law and that essentially dealt with our waiver of sovereign immunity. I don't know about you, but if you've had any exposure to the Court of Claims, there seems to be a perception, and certainly was my perception the first time I dealt with them, that this is a function of the judiciary branch of government. In fact, it is a creation of the legislature, and it is intended to be accountable to the legislature. And the purpose of this bill basically is to clarify that misunderstanding, that perception that seems to be prevalent as to under what agency of the government or branch of the government this board is created by and accountable to. Essentially, in the past, it has been overseen by 3 judges. They have been appointed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. They are per diem employees. In other words, they're paid a daily rate. These gentlemen have to be attorneys, so they're paid a fairly enhanced daily rate. It's currently $210 a day, and they are limited in the number of days that they can serve to 120 days during a calendar year. Unlike other employees or full-time employees, they have no fringe benefit package. They are purely and simply per diem employees. What this bill does, essentially, is to rename the Court of Claims as the State's Claims Commission, and to rename those who oversee these claims, who basically adjust these claims, review these claims, as commissioners rather than judges. And it clarifies that the Joint Committee of Government and Finance may appoint the clerk as well as the judges, the chief deputy clerk, the deputy clerks, and so forth. Similarly, similar to the appointment process, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate are given the ability to terminate the appointment of any commissioner who is appointed under the law. The Joint Committee on Government and Finance must approve the hiring of not more than 4 claims investigators who serve at the pleasure of the Joint Committee, and the Joint Committee fixes their compensation and oversees and approves the hiring of support staff. The bill also provides an expedited procedure for individuals who submit a property damage claim that is due to a condition on the state's highways or roads. We can we can easily refer to this as a pothole provision. There are 4 requirements in order to go through this expedited process. The claim, first of all, cannot arise under an appropriation for the current fiscal year. The claim must allege that a condition on the state highways or roads caused the property damage, in other words, a pothole or some similar condition. The Division of Highways must concur with the claim, and it must not exceed $3,000. And this expedited process is intended to allow that process to go further or to go faster than the normal process. This is, as I indicated, not a judicial function, so the code has always provided and continues to provide that the recommendation of the commission, and that's what it is, it's a recommendation to this body that we pass in a combination bill that's presented to us over all the claims that have been recommended for approval, and there is no judicial review of that recommendation. Mr. Speaker, I urge to pass it.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Lady from the 51st, Douglas FLEISCHAUER.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to urge rejection of this piece of legislation. I don't think this is the most important bill that we are going to deal with this session, but I do believe it has some issues that much of the time both sides agree on, and I urge rejection for ethical reasons. What the Court of Claims does is they decide cases where we have decided that there is a moral obligation on the part of the state. There may not be insurance, but we set aside a pot of funds, and one of the examples is Crime Victims Compensation Fund. When people are physically horribly injured, we set aside money, and we've compensated police officers, we've compensated people that have been beaten up, and someone has to go through and decide how much money they deserve. That's one of the things that the Court of Claims does. The reason I oppose this, and I understand there's an institutional issue, that we have separation of powers, that, you know, we have 3 branches of government, but when we set up this court 50 years ago, the reason we set it up this way was so that when people came before the court, and I've been before the court, I had a claim once, they know that they're going to get a fair hearing. I don't think it's critical that we call them judges or commissioners, but I do think it's critical that that whoever makes the decisions has insulation from interference, whether that be political or otherwise. And I understand they make a recommendation to the legislature, and the legislature can make political decisions when it decides what goes in and out of the budget. But for the purpose of this process, I think we should retain the selection method and also the selection, well, I'm not explaining this very well. They have a term of 6 years. And this bill says they can be fired at any time for any reason by the Speaker and the Senate President. They have to be an attorney, they have to have 10 years experience, they have to have no business with the state, and they don't get very much money per day. And so we're going to say that these people who are willing to do this can get fired just because somebody doesn't like them on a particular day, or some friend of one of ours, you know, we go to the Speaker of the Senate said, I don't like this person, I don't want that person to get funded. That could happen under this. I think if they have a term of 6 years, they should have the term of 6 years. It shouldn't be something that could be interfered with tomorrow. So I think that it assures that people have confidence in the integrity of the decisions. So I believe that we should reject this bill. I think there are ways to find solutions to fix this if it needs fixed. I'm not sure it needs to be fixed, but I think there is common ground here, and I think that we should have worked a little harder on a solution, but the way it is written now, I think it is wrong. I think it impairs the integrity of the decision making, and I urge a no vote.
John from the first, Doug McGeehan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In light of the elaboration from the gentlelady from Mon County, would the chair possibly explain some of the points that she just kind of brought up about maybe undue political influence over this claims commission that we're going to with the renaming, or the Court of Claims?
The gentleman
would the
asked
chair,
the
would the chair yield?
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
Yes.
She brought up some
I guess the first question is whether that is a change from current law. I would suggest to you that it's, as with any per diem employee, the power to appoint implies also the power to discharge. There is no protection other than a definite term here, but it's unclear as to whether there's any cause, any accountability in that definite current term. So in other words, I think it would be sound policy to provide in this bill a method of removing these folks rather than basically presuming that they, regardless of their performance or their behavior, they would be on the job for 6 years. I think it's unnecessary in terms of unnecessary to imply the 6-year term is without any way to terminate that term, because as I said earlier, if you have the power to appoint a per diem employee, it's implied you have the power to discharge. So my first point, and that was a long way to get there, is I don't think that the gentlelady's right in her conclusion that these folks will serve 6 years regardless of whether there's any type of performance problem. So I think this clarifies who they're accountable to and who would take action to terminate that 6-year term. But I think this statute would be interpreted, since these are per diem employees, to imply that right in the two officials who appointed them to have the same authority to remove them.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the elaboration.
John for the 60th, Doug Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that this commission does not have the same responsibilities and therefore would not have the same protections, the same independence as actual judiciary. Is that correct? That's the way I understand it. So I believe personally that every single one of us here and a few people outside this room need to serve at the pleasure of the true rulers of this state, who are the people who live here, who've elected us, who've sent us here to do their job. And that these folks who serve on this commission also should serve at the pleasure of the people as it's expressed through their elected representatives. I urge passage of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John for the 30th, Doug Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the gentleman from Mercer, the 27th, yield for question.
Gentleman,
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm interested in the pothole provision. So under the existing statute legislation, your claim is limited to $1,000. Is that correct?
My understanding is there is a procedure for a $1,000 claim. This is sort of an unofficial way that the Highways Department has been treating these claims within the Court of Claims, and it's been codified to make it clear as to what parameters, what conditions have to be met.
Perhaps I'm not, my question wasn't clear. If my car is damaged because of the poor conditions of the roads here in West Virginia, is my claim currently limited to $1,000, or is the state liable for the total cost of that damage?
Yes. There are really two different procedures, but the $3,000 procedure is new for the pothole, specifically designed for that. Apparently there's more frequent claims of that type, and so they've designed that and expanded from the $1,000 limit to the $3,000 limit.
So it does increase the amount that a motorist in West Virginia would be able to claim for damage for their vehicle from $1,000 to $3,000?
Yeah. We're talking about two different processes. If your claim is over $3,000, you'd have to go through a standard.
Go through the long process. So if your claim is less than $3,000, you can go through the expedited process.
And yes, assuming the Department of Highways agrees or Division of Highways agrees, then it expedites the recommendation for that.
So a separate track for pothole repair as opposed to repair for things that aren't pothole related. Is that
exactly?
Okay. So and none of this money actually goes to fix the roads. It just goes to fix your car because of the poor roads. Is that a true statement?
That is a true statement. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill. Gentleman from 36, Doug Rowe.
Yes, if the chair would yield for a question.
Gentleman, yield.
I am confused about the 1,000 and 3,000. I was looking at the amendment that's here, and I assume that it was adopted yesterday, and it says that we're striking 3,000 and inserting 1, which would be a reduction. Now, to what does that apply? That particular reduction from 3,000 to 1,000, if I'm reading it right.
Give me just a minute. I want to be sure I give you the correct information. Here's what's happened. When we typed up the committee substitute, the 3,000 that was intended to go into the pothole claim process was substituted for the 1,000 in the process that already existed. So you have two different expedited process. You've got one for any kind of claim that's $1,000, and that stays $1,000. Then if you've got a pothole claim that meets those criteria, you can assert a claim up to $3,000. But that's part of what we tried to, that's what we tried to correct yesterday in the amendment, was to clarify that mistake.
And when you say expedited process, in other words, if the claimant says, you know, I need $343, then they can get it processed quickly. Whereas if they want more,
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish. Yeah. When I say process, they don't issue a check, obviously. It just goes in as a recommended award without the need for a hearing and the other procedures that are followed typically by the court when they make a recommendation for a claim.
I've been looking this morning in regard to another bill at the reference of committees, and I understand this just went to Judiciary, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
And I was looking at government organization, and they seem to have the jurisdiction over any commission that might be formed or changed. And I just wondered, is there a reason we're not sending it to government org, or do you know, sir?
I can't answer that question. It was referred to the Judiciary Committee, and we did our job and have passed a committee substitute, and we're asking the members of the body to approve it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from the 30th, Delegates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry to come back to you again.
Gentleman,
the discussion from the delegate Kanawha got me thinking again too. Is the term pothole defined anywhere in the statute?
That was my my shorthand description of the bill, but it's basically just a condition of the highway that caused the damage to the vehicle. So it could have been perhaps a guardrail out of line or had been knocked off track. And it could be any number of things that's related to the highway, but commonly, from what I've been told, it's generally the potholes that cause the claims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from the 20th, Delegate Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield?
Gentleman yields.
Yes.
All settlements that come through the Court of Claims or the new State Claims Commission are approved by this body. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I could not hear your question.
All claims that are settled are approved by this body?
Yes, it's a recommendation to this body, and it usually comes in the form of a bill with listed claims and the recommended award that the commission has come up with.
Is there a line item set forth in the budget to settle these claims?
That's beyond my pay grade. I'm sorry. I think finance could probably answer that. I don't know.
Okay, and if this bill was to pass, the judges that are on the Court of Claims would be basically at will to the Speaker and the President? Is that the way I understand it?
That would be my interpretation of the statute as it's written. The Speaker, in their official capacities, whoever the speakers are at the time, the Speaker and the President have the authority to appoint and fill a vacancy, and I would suggest to you that that carries with it the ability also to discharge, to terminate.
Does the governor, when he appoints a legislator or some other office, have the right to discharge that same employee once he was or she was to appoint?
That's an official of the state. I think that's governed by a different section of the code.
Okay, but the governor wouldn't have, I mean, if he didn't like the policy that a legislator that he appointed or she appointed, he couldn't discharge that legislator. Is that correct?
Well, as I said, the members of the court, or what will be the commission if this bill passes, are not officials of the state. Nowhere in the code are they referred to as officials. They're certainly not elected, and they're not full-time employees. They're not salaried employees. They're per diem employees. So I think it's a different situation than the governor filling a vacancy here in the House or the Senate.
Are they confirmed Or is it just,
Currently,
how does the process
the
work when they're
appointment
hired?
goes to the Senate for confirmation. Yes, that's the way that the current law reads.
Does the entire Senate confirm, or is it just as the president?
Now, the president would be one of two people to appoint. It would go through, I assume it would go through the Senate Confirmations Committee with a recommendation to the floor of the Senate.
Okay, so
I haven't been involved in that process, but that's my assumption.
So I guess the Senate would be approving this on a vote, but then we're given the power to two individuals to discharge what the body of the Senate has voted on. Is that correct?
Yes, I don't think this changes that. I think it clarifies it, but I don't think it changes it.
Okay, I think you said it right the first time. It really changes the dynamics of how this is set up. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from 36, Delegate Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been looking at the rules, and it appears that the Government Organization Committee is exactly appropriate to consider this bill, and they have unique counsel and experience in looking at the organization of committees and commissions and departments. And I note that Judiciary has no jurisdiction, at least set forth in its committee rule, and this is in Rule 77, that relates to anything other than the courts. It doesn't have anything to do with commissions and that sort of thing, although I know that Judiciary does a great job in any of these matters. But I just wonder, as a point of order, and I don't know that, I'm not even sure how I should make, whether it's a motion or whatever, I just would like us to, the Speaker at least, to consider referring the bill to government organization. We're early in the session. This, by the way, comes up in regard to a bill that was reported from education, or is going to be reported from education. I don't think it came on the floor today. But it is an important point, because we want to make sure that the best expertise relating to reorganization of government be applied, and I think government organization would be that, sir. So I don't know if I should make a motion or if I should just request the chair to consider it, lay it over a day. I don't know how to proceed.
If the gentleman wishes to actually make that motion, it would certainly be up to him to make that motion. I would say, just in response to the gentleman's inquiry, this was a bill that was discussed in terms of the Joint Committee on Government and Finance and some other, that each of the members that committee had talked about it. And in reviewing it, I believe that it was appropriate, because of the nature of it, for it to go to Judiciary. If the gentleman wants to make a motion to that effect, that it go to another committee, he certainly has the right to do that. And I believe, subject to clarification of the clerk, that would be in terms of is that a general majority or a rule suspension to do that? Majority. The gentleman can make that motion. It would just take a majority, as I'm advised by the clerk to do that. So if the gentleman wishes to do that, it would not be my preference to do that just by my appointment of that, or my assignment of that bill to an additional committee at this time. But if the gentleman wishes to make that motion, it would certainly be within your right to do so.
Well, I accept the Speaker's, right and duty to make assignments as he thinks appropriate. I'm really just pointing out, and I'm not sure how I should proceed. If it's all right, I would like to make the motion that we send the bill to government organization, and I'll abide by the decision of the body in regard to the motion.
The gentleman is certainly within his right to make that motion. Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the adoption of that motion? The gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Chris.
Speaker.
Gentleman may state his point.
If the bill is moved to government org, does it stay on third reading in this body?
It would be my understanding that it would go through the regular committee process and come back to us on first reading, because it would be possible it could be changed. Is that correct? The clerk is correcting me. If it was amended, it would come back on first. If it came back in the same form that it's, I'm sorry, it comes back on second. I apologize. If it came back, as my understanding, and the clerk, please correct me if I'm wrong, if it came back in the same form that it was without any amendment, it would come back on third. If it came back with an amendment from the committee, then it would come back on second reading for us to deal with that amendment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I could ask for a point of clarification, do we have a motion before us to send it to GovOrg? Is that the status that we're in right now?
Gentleman is correct.
I'd like to speak to that motion if I could.
Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to read to you from rule number 76, talking about standing committees and bill referrals. It says the Speaker shall refer bills introduced, resolutions offered, and messages, petitions, memorials, and other matters presented to such committees as he shall deem appropriate to consider and report therein. I think a lot of times bills that come before us that need to be referred to our standing committees deal with a multitude of issues. In some ways, it's a judgment call as to what committee it needs to go to because issues overlap quite often. This bill was introduced, referred to one of our most outstanding standing committees, fully considered, fully debated. It's come to the floor and been through first, second, and today on third reading. And I would suggest to you that it is before you for action today, and we should take action. If you disagree with the bill, you have a red button. If you think it's a good policy for the state of West Virginia, you have a green button, and it would be my preference that we proceed with the matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 63rd, Doug Folk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As one that has a little experience trying to get a bill up into another committee, and as I respect your idea, but I really think that the appropriate time would have been when it was reported to the floor or in first reading. And one thing I would caution you is that, and I would hopefully maybe just get rid of that motion, is that do you really want it to send it to the gentleman's subcommittee from the first that likes to abolish things?
At issue here is House Bill 2447, renaming the Court of Claims the State Claims Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the consideration. I would say, first of all, that I say to many people that I talk to that this is the greatest decision-making body in the world. Our process, the legislative process, involves all the stakeholders. It requires us to review it. We have expertise in certain areas. And the most important part about what we do is that procedure is as important as the merits of a bill. It's as important that we do it right, that we study it, and as it is what we ultimately decide. You know, dictatorships make some good decisions probably, but we understand and know that in our system here in this body that all sides are heard and there's an opportunity to be heard and understood, and that we use our expertise appropriately. And I would just read the standing committee. And first of all, I should say that I do not disagree that the Speaker has a power to send bills to a particular committee. It doesn't say based on the jurisdictions listed in the next rule or any of that sort of thing. It just says that the Speaker uses his best judgment to assign it to the appropriate committee. But let me read this. Committee on Government Organization, this is number 6. It's to deal with legislation and proposals dealing with the Executive Department of State Government with respect to creation, duties, and functions, consolidation and abolition, and transfer, imposition, and elimination of functions. Duties of departments, commissions, and we have a commission, that's what we're going to establish, boards, offices, and agencies, and measures relating to the legislative department. That's clearly where we are on this bill, other than apportionment of representation and redistricting for the election of members of 2 houses. So clearly, government organization is the appropriate expertise for us to have considered this bill, but other bills. And I would say that one of the most important parts of our decision process is predictability. That when we see a bill and we're introducing a bill and we try to gauge where it would go, we look at these rules and we understand that if we're going to change an agency of state government, it's probably going to go to government organization. So what do? We go to the chair of government organization and say, hey, would you want to join on this bill? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But predictability is important, and I just would say, again, as I said to the Speaker, I'll accept his decision on this in any way that he does, but I really urge the body to look at this as a matter of procedure and not as a matter of the merits of the bill. You know, we have to observe our legislative rules and procedures in order to get a good result. And it's time-honored. We all understand that whenever we have predictability in the law and the decision process is open and free and discussion is full, then we come up with the best decision. So I would urge that the motion be adopted just as a way of us being able to look again at the jurisdiction of committees. Thank you.
Lady from the 51st, Dr. FLEISCHAUER.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the gentleman's motion, but for a slightly different reason. I think there is one of the problems with this bill was we didn't have an opportunity to hear one of the people who was most affected, who had a death in the family. And I realize that we do need to move quickly. We have a 60-day session, but one advantage of going to another committee is that we could gather a more full picture. And I think there is room for compromise. I think there is a way to not impair the integrity of this decision-making body. And if we spend a little bit more time on it. So for that, in addition to the reason that he stated on the jurisdiction of the committees, I urge adoption of the gentleman's motion.
John from 32nd, Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the delegate from Mercer yield?
Chairman yield? Gentleman yields.
Delegate, can you give me the amount of appropriation the legislature appropriates to the Court of Claims for, say, this fiscal year?
I cannot give you that information. The chairman of the Finance Committee may be able to, but that's not at my disposal. That information is not at my fingertips.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the motion by the gentleman from 36 that the bill be referred to the Committee on Government Organization? If I could just clarify, the gentleman had asked a question previously, and I want to clarify one thing in terms of your point of order that you had made, whether I would consider and what the process would be for referring this to a second committee. Previous to our recent changes to the rules that we made, this would have been required, I believe, as a motion at any time. We did change our rules to allow me as the speaker to make a second reference when a bill comes back from the original. If, for example, if it was only referred to one committee, when it was reported back from that committee, I do, under our rules, have the ability as speaker to refer it to a second committee at that time, even if it wasn't originally referred to a second committee. But that, as we looked at the rule and the rule change, would only have been appropriate for me to do at the time it came back from, as a committee report from the Judiciary Committee. So your original request, which I did decline to do, I don't really believe I could have done under our rule change, and I want to make that clarification. The only way at this point, the stage that we're in now, for us to do that would be by the gentleman's motion as he's made. So I just want to make that clarification. So in the future, the House would realize that when it comes back from a committee, if it's singly referenced to one committee, I could make a second reference at that time, but only at that time, and otherwise it would be a motion as the gentleman has made. Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the motion before I recognize the gentleman from 36 wish to close the debate? Not the question before the House is the motion by the gentleman from 36 that the bill be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Noes appear to have it. Noes do have it. Declare the motion rejected. I believe were there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Does the gentleman from the 27th wish to close debate on passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the debate that preceded my remarks illustrates the need for clarification in the statute and also consistency in how we treat our per diem employees. Let me just read to you a part of the law that's been in existence ever since this court, now perhaps commission, was set up. This is under section 28 of chapter 14. Because a decision of the court, which would be changed to commission, is a recommendation to the legislature based upon a finding of moral obligation, and the enactment process of passage of legislation authorizing payments of claims recommended by the commission or court is at legislative discretion. No right of appeal exists to findings and award recommendations of the Court of Claims, and they are not subject to judicial review. And I think that part of the law, which does not change except for the name of the commission, illustrates that this body is to be under our control, and that and under our supervision, and that accountable to us. And the changes to this law are simply intended to clarify any issues that might have arisen, and some of them have been discussed here today, and to provide consistency. And I think the word predictability was mentioned in earlier remarks. It provides predictability and is necessary for us to clarify the role and duties and accountability of this particular body. And therefore, I would urge passage of the bill.
The question for the House is the passage of the bill. All those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 66 ayes, 34 nays, no members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2447.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. For what purpose, gentleman from the 20th, Delegate Markham, seek recognition.
Question of the chair.
The gentleman may state his question.
Mr. Speaker, with the title, we did more than just change the name of the commission. Request that the chair review the title to see if a title amendment's necessary.
I think that is the short title. That is not the title of the bill. That there's a distinction between the title as the legal title is on the bill versus just the short title, which is just a description of the bill. So certainly I believe that, and I will defer to the chair to confirm this, but I believe that the title was reviewed based on any changes that were made to the bill, and that the actual legal title has been reviewed. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2465, modifying the requirements that allow a child witness to testify by closed-circuit television.
Question for the House passes the bill. Gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2465 amends current law relating to children testifying in certain legal matters versus via closed-circuit television. The bill also allows certain protections and accommodations should the child testify instead actually in court. Now, those of you who've been here a while know we've run this bill before. In fact, it's come through the House twice, passed last year unanimously. The year before that, I believe there were 2 votes against, so you could say it was overwhelming. Each time it's gone to the Senate and got hung up in the Senate over various concerns. So we're trying a third time. We think we've addressed the concerns in this bill, and hopefully it will be more positively received in the Senate. But by way of, let me just give you an example of where this might be critically important, and probably doesn't take a lot of imagination to imagine these situations. Suppose you have a situation where a young child was sexually molested by an adult, and as part of that whole transaction, that whole situation, the adult tells the child, if you tell anyone, I'll kill you. And you can imagine the terror in the mind of the child in that situation. So to force the child to sit on a witness stand and staring directly at the accused and give his or her account of what happened can be extremely not only intimidating but perhaps even paralyzing. This bill intends to address that, providing some optional methods by which the judge can allow this child to testify. And I want you to keep in mind the role of the judge in any case is to make sure that the testimony is presented in an effective way to the jury to be helpful to them in resolving what issue it is that they are considering. So in some ways, the judge is sort of a gatekeeper. And what we're doing here is allowing or is expanding upon the options that are available to the judge in that type of situation. Current law provides that a child under the age of 16, so 16 is the key date, may testify via two-way closed-circuit TV. In other words, The child can see what's going on out in the courtroom, and the courtroom can see via the television what the child as he or she is testifying. But before that method is adopted, the court has to have an evidentiary hearing and make a determination as to whether this method is in the best interest of the child and still satisfies the underlying confrontation clause that's contained in the Sixth Amendment of our Constitution. In other words, an accused has the right to confront those who accuse him or her. Now, what we're doing with this bill, this committee substitute, is amend the current law to allow a child to testify via one-way television. In other words, as an additional option, the judge can decide that rather than have the child see what's going on out in the courtroom, only those people out in the courtroom see the child as he or she is testifying. So the courtroom and the defendant are not visible to the child over the television. Now, keep in mind, we still have the two-way television if the judge chooses that as the appropriate option, but now we're adding the one-way. Once again, the court has to conduct an evidentiary hearing and establish by clear and convincing evidence that this testimony is appropriate under the standards. Now, in order to do that, the court has to make specific findings. First, it has to conclude that this method is necessary to protect the welfare of the child witness. Secondly, that requiring the child witness to testify in the physical presence of the defendant would result in substantial emotional distress, which would impair the ability of the child to truthfully and effectively communicate. And thirdly, that the emotional distress suffered by the child is more than just simple nervousness or excitement or just a general reluctance to testify. This bill also allows the court to retain an expert to provide a report regarding the findings that I just outlined and the decision to be made by the court. Now, the bill also allows for accommodations to be made if the judge decides not to use either of these two methods, but instead that the child should testify in court, and that would allow the child to hold a blanket or some means of comforting, such as a toy, a teddy bear, or whatever. That option is also available to the judge. It extends the allowance. The current bill has certain crimes listed for which this method is available. What this bill does, it also adds some additional sexual offenses to that list of crimes and abuse matters as well. And also, the bill expands the provisions of the bill to provide that these methods are available in the case of an adult but who has an intellectual disability that renders that person to function at an age less than 16. So that's what the bill does. It changes existing law. We think it approves existing law and offers further protections in these limited situations. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 100 ayes, 0 nays, no members absent, not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2465.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Bills on second reading. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2001 relating to ethics and transparency in government.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2028 relating to the venue for suits and other actions against the state.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2359 relating to offenses and penalties for practicing osteopathic medicine without a license.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2479 Uniform Deployed Parents Custody and Visitation Act.
Bill be advanced. Leaves of absence. Remarks by members of the House. The lady from the 32nd, Delegate Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I usually don't try to take up too much time unless there's something that I'm particularly passionate about that I'd like to speak about. And today is Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And yesterday we passed a very important bill that increased penalties for human trafficking in West Virginia. And I just wanted to share some statistics with you all today in light of this horrendous criminal activity that's taking place even in the United States. There are a lot of people that aren't aware of how large the industry is, but it's actually the third largest international crime industry currently. There are an estimated 20 to 30 million people that are currently being trafficked, whether that be through forced labor or sexual servitude. In the United States alone, there are 14,500 to 17,000 people who are being trafficked in the United States every year. And so this is a very serious issue that we really need to take into consideration. Today, Delegate Arvon and I are participating in something called the End It movement, and we're placing a red X on our hand to raise awareness for the people who are being trafficked. And so if anyone would like to participate and join us in wearing a red X, we would really love for you to join us. People across the country are participating, and we'd love to have a showing with the leaders in West Virginia to make sure that people know and are aware of how passionate we are about this and how dedicated we are to making sure that it's ended within our lifetimes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Eldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really wasn't sure how to go about doing this. I represent Lincoln County. Lincoln County today, February 23rd, makes its 150th birthday. I wanted to make people aware of that, and leadership aware of that. Lincoln County is a rural area. It's a large county, one of the largest counties we have. It was named after a pretty important president. President Lincoln created West Virginia from another state during troublesome times, during a very important time in our history. And Lincoln County alone was named after President Lincoln. And Lincoln County also was carved out of several counties. I thought the significance of that was pretty important. Lincoln County has really put out some great people in its 150 years existence. John Witcher, he was a Union general. He served the House of Delegates. He served as a Secretary of State. And he also was a congressman. Another important person that came out of Lincoln County was Clark May. He was also Senate President and served as Attorney General. We have a long-standing senator, Mr. Lloyd Jackson, and I think he served as Senate President as well. We had a guy that was thrown from a horse and had two or three broken ribs. He kept that quiet just so he could break the sound barrier. So by mentioning these people, I just wanted people to know, the strongest assets that we have in Lincoln County is the people of Lincoln County. And we're going to continue to work to get Lincoln County everything that we can. And I would like to say happy birthday, Lincoln County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Further remarks by members? Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, subject to announcements, I move the House adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Other announcements? Gentleman from 64th, Delegate Householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Finance will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety budget presentation. And the Republican members of House Finance will caucus tomorrow morning at 8:45 in the Chairman's office. Thank you.
John from the 27th, Delegate Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An inquiry regarding the availability of the House chamber for Monday, February 27th at 8:30 for the purpose of a public hearing.
Chamber is available.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on the Judiciary will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 27th at 8:30 a.m. on House Bill 2506. The current title of the bill is related to the implementation of water quality standards for the protection of drinking water. And also, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on the Judiciary will meet tomorrow, February 24th at 9 a.m. in the House Committee on Judiciary room. The agenda will be posted.
John from the 51st, Doug Stadler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in the Education Committee room for a presentation on the state aid funding formula by Ms. Amy Willard, the Executive Director of School Finance.
Lady from 31st, Doug Arvine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet tomorrow morning, February 24th at 9 a.m. in the Government Organization Committee Room, 215 East, and the Republican members of Government Organization will caucus at 8:30 a.m. in the Chairman's office. And Mr. Speaker, would it be okay if I go back to miscellaneous business for just a minute?
Lady, may proceed. Without objection, lady, may proceed.
I'd like to request that the gentlelady's remarks from the 32nd be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, remarks be placed in the appendix of the journal. The lady from the 49th, Doggett Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet today at 2 o'clock in room 215E. The agenda is posted. The Republican members will caucus from 1 to 1:30 in the Chairman's office. Thank you.
John from the 10th, Doggett Kelly.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Energy will meet today at 2 p.m. in Judiciary Committee room. The agenda is posted.
Lady from the 32nd, Doggett Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Republican members on the Committee of Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse will meet in the Chairman's office today at 1:30, and the committee will convene at 3:30.
John from the 1st, Douglas Tesla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to announce that the Brooke and Hancock County Commissioners have lunch for everybody in the House over in Government Org. Get over there fast because there's a meeting scheduled at 1, so thank you.
Lady from the 65th, Doggett Upson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet today at 1 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee Room. The agenda has been posted. Also, Mr. Speaker, your subcommittee looking at K through 12 issues on your Committee on Education will not be meeting today at 4:30. Thank you.
John from the 12th, Doggett Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a correction. It seems like we get a snowball going, it will not stop. Your Banking and Insurance Committee will meet today at 1 o'clock in Judiciary. It was announced yesterday at 1 o'clock. We normally will meet from now on every Thursday at 10 o'clock. But today, 1 o'clock, Judiciary. Thank you very much.
John from 17th, Doggett Warbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Senior Citizens Issues will meet at 1 o'clock today in the Government Organization Committee room.
The John from the 20th, Doggett Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democratic members of Banking and Insurance will meet in the Lewis McManus room right after session. Additionally, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from the 22nd's remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal. The lady from the 50th, Doug Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrat members of the Health Committee will have a caucus in the back of the chamber immediately after session. Thank you.
John from the 3rd, Doggett Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democratic members of Judiciary will caucus this afternoon at 3:30 in room 151 conference room. Thanks.
John from the 4th, Doggett Farrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrats will caucus immediately following floor session in the House Education Committee room.
John from the 28th, Doggett O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republican members will not caucus today after session. Repeat, will not caucus today after session. Thank you.
Further announcements. If not, the question for the House is a motion by the gentleman from the 58th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the House adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
You've been watching the House of Delegates at Work live. The Senate has concluded its floor session for the day, but we will show you its floor session in its entirety. There are two bills Two bills up for passage on third reading in the Senate. Senate Bill 182, providing procedures that prevent disqualifying low bids for government construction contracts due to document technicalities. And Senate Bill 240, creating the crime of non-consensual distribution of sexual images. And here's what the Senate did while the House was in session.
Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. With those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Pastor Michael Brown of the Cowan First Baptist Church in Summersville, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senator from Boone, Pastor Brown.
Today, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association has sent out a pamphlet called How to Pray for Your Leaders. And I would like to use that as a guide for my prayer today. Would you join me in prayer? Our dear kind Heavenly Father, as we come before you this day, Lord, you've told us to pray for those who have leadership over us that we might live a life of peace and tranquility. So we pray for these leaders who are called to this Senate chamber this day. Father, as they make decisions concerning the state of West Virginia, we pray, Lord, that they would have help and accept the help of wise counsel. Lord, that they would watch over those who come against them, that they would not be influenced by the evil one. Father, we pray that you would protect them as they go about their duties, that you would give them discretion, forethought, understanding as they make decisions concerning the constituents of West Virginia. Lord, that you would deliver them from opinions that are contrary to your word, that you would guard them from harm and bless and protect them and their families. Lord, that you would enable them to do their duties with humility toward you and toward others. Father, that you would give them courage to do the right thing, despite the influence of others who would ask them to do something else. And God, most of all, we ask that you give them a heart of compassion toward those that they serve and those that they lead. And we pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And all in agreement say, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Brown. The senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the guests in the galleries and the members of the body please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, Wednesday, February 22nd, 2017. The Senate met at 11 a.m.
The gentleman from Tucker, the senator from Tucker, requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome the honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As a guest from the senator from Harrison, we have Kimberly McNeamer. As guest of the senator from Braxton, we have Kylie McWhirter. And as my guest, I have Colby Farrell. Would they all please stand and the Senate make them welcome? The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure and yours to introduce our doc for the day, Dr. Sarah Sexton of Huntington, West Virginia. If she would please stand and the Senate make her welcome.
Further introductions, gentlemen may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also on your behalf and the senior senator from the 4th, we have in the rear gallery the president of the Jackson County School Board and is also the parent of our page here today, Ms. Bobby Farrell. If she would stand and the Senate please make her welcome.
Further introductions, the senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's your pleasure and mine to welcome a Point Pleasant High School civics class sitting in the North Gallery. Most of those students up there are from there. Their teacher is Rachel DeHano, and one of those students is my niece. If she would wave, it's Emily Parsons up there. There she is. And let me briefly say, their teacher led them through a class on how a bill becomes law. So they're here today to see how a bill becomes law, and I think she's going to do in the future, she's going to do her own little committee at school and debate something. So you all behave yourself now and show them how a bill becomes law today. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate you coming.
The senator from Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we're privileged today to have a good friend of mine pray for us today, Mike Brown. Mike and I go back a long way, but in addition, he is accompanied by his wife, Jeannie, who is sitting in the rear gallery. Her father was an esteemed member of the House of Delegates for a number of years, representing Nicholas and other counties, the neighboring counties. So if Miss Jeannie, if you would stand, and if the Senate would please make her feel welcome.
The senator from Wyoming.
Mr. President, it's my pleasure to introduce the Rural Appalachian Improvement League from Wyoming County, Mullins, West Virginia. Charlene Cook, Tim McGraw, Dewey Houck, and Whitney, and the AmeriCorps members that are with them, Whitney Mitchell and Meredith Hemrick. So could you please stand? Let them welcome. Thank you.
Further introductions? The senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my pleasure and yours, and on behalf of my senior senator from Braxton County, I'd like to introduce the parents of Keely Ann McWhorter, one of our pages today. Please welcome Christy and Kenny McWhorter, who are up in the gallery. In addition, Mr. President, one of our pages today, Kimberly McNeamer, is joined here today by Connie and Bill McNeamer. And I have to inform you, the McNeamers come from a long line of volunteer fire department chiefs, and they've done a wonderful job in Harrison County. Please welcome them today.
Further introductions? The senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Visiting here today from Taylor County are two teachers. I'm not sure which gallery they're in. Renee Mahoney and Anna Hicks. If they would stand and the body make them welcome.
Further introductions? Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2167, creating a Silver Alert program for senior citizens.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Engrossed House Bill 2300, regulating step therapy protocols.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2301, relating to direct primary care.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2318, relating generally to human trafficking.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2347, allowing schools licensed to provide barber cosmetology and related training to hold theory classes and clinical classes at different locations.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Engrossed House Bill 2348, eliminating any requirement that class hours of students be consecutive.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Engrossed House Bill 2431, allowing influenza immunizations to be offered to patients and residents of specified facilities.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bills 118, 119, 121, 120, 122, 123, 124, 125 and 126, Healthcare Authority Rule relating to Hospital Assistance Grant Program, and reports back a committee substitute for same. With the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The message will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 214, adopting Uniform Electronic Legal Material Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same. With the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The message will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 238, increasing tax credits allowed for rehabilitation of certified historic structures, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
The report will be received, and under the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Pensions has had under consideration Senate Bill 321, reporting requirements of employee information to CPRB, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, C. Edward Gaunch, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 341, establishing West Virginia Business Growth in Low-Income Communities Tax Credit, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
The report will be received, and under the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Pensions has had under consideration Senate Bill 354, relating to municipalities, policemen, and firemen pension plans, Senate Bill 355 relating to required minimum distribution of retirement benefits from plans administered by CPRB, and Senate Bill 371 requiring CPRB adopt smoothing method regarding gains and losses on teachers' retirement system fund assets, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass, but under the original double committee references, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, C. Edward Gaunch, Chair.
The report will be received, and under the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
That's all I have, sir.
Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 405 through Senate Bill 425 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
The senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 405 through Senate Bill number 425 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Joint Resolution 6 by Senators Carmichael, Mr. President, and Prezioso by request of the Executive, Roads to Prosperity Amendment of 2017.
The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and then to the Committee on Finance. The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and then to the Committee on the Judiciary. Further resolution.
Yes, sir. Senate Concurrent Resolution 20 by Senators Maynard and Stallings naming the Curtis Papp and Millie Mammy Asbury Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 21 by Senators Clements, Boso, Maroney, Weld, and Stallings naming the U.S. Army Corporal Daniel Frederick Maringer Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 19 by Senators Trump, Klein, Blair, and Rucker expressing support for confirmation of Judge Neil M. Gorsuch to U.S. Supreme Court.
Under the resolution of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 20 by Senators Miller, Mann, Takubo, Stallings, Romano, Blair, Unger, and Plymel recognizing the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. The senator from Greenbrier.
Requesting unanimous consent, the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
The gentleman from Greenbrier requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 20, recognizing the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine for excellence in medical education and its many contributions to the state of West Virginia.
The senator from Greenbrier.
Mr. President, I'd like to speak to that resolution today. We honor what can be wonderfully called in West Virginia when a state works together to make great things happen. We honor today a school which is a leader not just in West Virginia but throughout the country in providing quality physicians to communities in need of doctors. Dr. Roland Sharp of Pocahontas County was the founding president of WVSOM in the early 70s, and in his autobiography, Roland Sharp, Dr. Sharp, the title Roland Sharp Country Doctor, wrote about the reason he and a group of other physicians started the school. This is a quote. Our idea of establishing a medical school to train family physicians was considerably different from what establishing medical schools in the past had done. All they had been trying to see was who had the largest and best hospitals and who had the most research. Our idea was to forget about hospitals, forget about research until we got going well, and train some family physicians for the state. And there were plenty of counties back then at that time that had one or less doctors, end of quote. Since that founding with Dr. Sharp and others, the school has consistently ranked very high among med schools, not only in West Virginia but in the country, in family practice, and has produced many physicians who serve and are leaders in the state, one in this body even. The school almost disappeared from existence in the very beginning, but under the visionary wisdom, and it does hurt me to say this, of former Governor Arch Moore, the Republican governor, he brought the school under the state umbrella. This school has grown and flourished in continuing its mission in training doctors for not only all of America, but it has particularly provided great growth for the number of doctors serving in West Virginia. The school lives true today to the vision of Governor Moore as it provides for the people of the state. And it is again a great example of what this state and its people can accomplish if we work together and strive together for the best. I urge adoption of this resolution.
Further discussion? The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too stand to support the resolution. Lewisburg, being an alum, holds a very special place in my heart. I remember not only is it a great school, it's just a wonderful community. When I was first traveling up there and looking for a place to live when you're getting ready to start school, we almost thought it was in some kind of sci-fi movie how pleasant everyone that greeted us was. Even the gas station to the school, to the people in town, it was just always hi, howdy, want to know about us. But it's hard to not just mention the wonderful accolades that our school has done. It truly is one of the gems, and they set the standard for everything that is done right. West Virginia State Osteopathic School has been in the U.S. News and World Report 18 consecutive years. We all look at the U.S. News and World Report to see their top colleges and pharmacy schools and medical schools. The top 50 for 18 consecutive years. I mean, they are the Steelers and Cowboys and Patriots all wrapped into one. They've also ranked nationally in rural medicine, primary care medicine, family medicine. They've been recognized by the Chronicle for Higher Education for 6 consecutive years for a great college to work at. And the employees, when you go through and talk to them, they love being at Lewisburg. It's more than a job, it's a family. They're the #1 provider for physicians throughout rural West Virginia, but also throughout Appalachia, as Senator Miller alluded to. They're the leading producer of primary care physicians, and they currently provide half of all primary care physicians throughout the state of West Virginia. So they took the charge back in the early 1970s, and they have absolutely ran with it under excellent leadership, and I just can't stand here and say enough how proud I am to be alum of the school. In addition to all that, there's a wonderful financial footprint that they do for the state. They are not only in Greenbrier County, but they have 6 branches throughout the state and regional offices. They provide 3rd and 4th year students. The Rural Health Initiative, where they send students out all across the state to learn about coal minings. I mean, these guys gear up and they're down in the bottom of the coal mine so that later on when they're seeing that patient, they get an understanding. They know what they've been through. They go with loggers. So many wonderful stories and opportunities they provide to continue with the philosophy of a DO, which is mind, body, spirit. Treat that person as a whole. Understand where they're coming from so that you can provide the best care to them. Their overall economic impact to this state is $73.2 million with the creation of over 836 jobs. So it's not just the economic impact they do for Greenbrier County, but it's for the whole state of West Virginia. Very proud of them and proud to support the resolution. Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the comments by the senior senator from the 10th, the junior senator from the 17th, be printed in the appendix to the journal.
The Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the comments by the senator from Greenbrier and the junior senator from the 17th be printed in the appendix of the journal. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
The Senator from Ohio moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present the resolution.
You're watching the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. This is a recording of the Senate floor session from earlier today. A special program tomorrow here on the West Virginia Channel. We're partnering with Metro News Talkline to bring you Governor Justice's appearance with host Hoppy Kercheval to take callers' questions. A town hall meeting with Governor Jim Justice. That's tomorrow morning at 10 here on the West Virginia Channel. The Senate is in session. There are no microphones in the room right now that are active, so it's silent. It's not your device and it's not your television. It is just silent right now coming out of the Senate chamber.
Senate will come to order. The Senate will come to order. Further resolutions?
Yes, sir. Senate Resolution 21 by Senators Miller, Klein, Stallings, Romano, Unger, and Plymel designating February 23, 2017 as West Virginia Local Foods Day.
The Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
The Senator from Greenbrier requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 21 designating February 23, 2017 as West Virginia Local Foods Day at the Capitol.
The Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak to this resolution also. Today, I stand and speak for the resolution of the Farm and Food Coalition. I'm sure that some of you in this body are old enough, maybe not all of you, to remember the old Hee Haw show. In one segment of that show with Grandpa Jones, you would find him standing in front of a window and the crowd would yell, "Hey, Grandpa, what's for supper?" And he would answer something like, "Spoon bread and pintos and all kinds of greens and a good dish for old folks as well as the teens, carrots and cauliflower and apples baked whole, and a pitcher of buttermilk. All you can hold." Well, the crowd would respond back, "Yum, yum." I think that's what they said. I sometimes thought they said yuck, yuck, but I think they said yum, yum. I share that today to say that it is important for us to resolve in this body and in West Virginia that small farms and their production are a great future for us as a state and as a people. The West Virginia Food and Farm Coalition works to promote changes in agriculture policy and to promote access to local foods, as well as helping small farms who are struggling survive and grow, new farmers survive and grow. They're working to build strong and safe local food economies for all the people of this state. That which is grown locally and that which is consumed locally certainly makes for healthier and better tasting food. The governor stressed this in his inaugural address. It's something which he believes and promotes, if you remember him talking about tomatoes. He doesn't only talk about such important items as that, but he does so even in his small hotel in Greenbrier County we know as the Greenbrier. So today, stand with me, please, in support of this resolution. Hey, Grandpa, what's for supper? Chicken and dumplings made from scratch, a big old meatloaf. Oh, what a match. Lima beans and turnip greens, you know they are good. Fried okra and cornbread, both are as crispy as they should. I got some sweet iced tea for us to drink, and the pumpkin pie cooling on the sill above the sink. A very good resolution, yum yum. Let's stand for that today.
Wait. Further discussion. The Senator from Jefferson.
I just want to speak in support of this resolution. I have gotten to know the West Virginia Farmers Association and the food banks, and they are doing such great work helping local farmers, encouraging new entrepreneurship in the area of farming and agriculture in our state. I know that our new Agriculture Commissioner is very much in support of what's going on, and this is just going to help our economy. It's going to help find jobs where there isn't any, and it's just a good thing all around for the community. I just want to highly ask all of you to please appreciate the hard work that they do and the opportunities that are opening up because of what they have done for West Virginia.
Further discussion. Further discussion. If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the comments by the Senator from Greenbrier and the Senator from Jefferson pertaining to Senate Resolution 21 be printed in the appendix to the journal.
The Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the comments by the gentleman from the Senator from Greenbrier and the Senator from Jefferson be printed in the appendix of the journal. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
The Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present the resolution.
And while this resolution is being presented in the Senate chamber, let's review the Senate calendar for today. On third reading, up for passage, Senate Bill 182, providing procedures that prevent disqualifying low bids for government construction contracts due to document technicalities. And Senate Bill 240, creating the crime of non-consensual distribution of sexual images. The bills on second reading, the floor amendment stage, Senate Bill 41, extending time a person may be subject to probation from 5 to 7 years. Senate Bill 113, authorizing the DEP promulgate legislative rule awarding matching grants for litter control programs. Senate Bill 325, relating to crossbow hunting, to clarify that the use of crossbow for hunting big game requires additional licenses, stamps, or permits. And Senate Bill 330, relating to the West Virginia Workplace Freedom Act, to provide technical corrections. And the bills on first reading, no action on the floor today. Senate Bill 9, regulating unmanned aircraft systems. Senate Bill 80, equalizing criminal penalty for entering without braking regardless of time of day. Senate Bill 164, relating to traffic regulations and special load limits. Also on first reading, Senate Bill 204, requiring persons appointed to fill vacancy by governor have same qualifications for vacated office and receive same compensation and expenses. Senate Bill 231, relating to the State Board of Education and Medicaid-eligible children. Senate Bill 236, relating to damages for medical monitoring. And Senate Bill 349, repealing outdated code related to the Division of Corrections. Those are the bills that are up on first reading, just making their way through the Senate calendar.
The Senate will come to order. The Senate will come to order. Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to return to the fourth order of business for additional standing committee reports.
The Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent to return to the fourth order of business for the additional standing committee report. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 426, originating in committee, relating to repealing a Division of Natural Resources legislative rule relating to litter control grant program, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received. Unfinished business.
There is none.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 182, providing procedures that prevent disqualifying low bids for government construction contracts due to document technicalities. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill amends 3 requirements involved in the bidding of state construction projects. It addresses 3 documents that are required to be submitted with the bids. The first one is the subcontractors list. The second is the drug-free workplace affidavit. And the third one is the contractor's license number. Currently, if any of these documents are not submitted with the bid, it can be disqualified. The bill requires the Division of Purchasing to notify the low bidder and the second low bidder if any of these documents are not submitted. The bidder would then have 1 business day to submit the document before the bid would be disqualified. According to the Division of Purchasing, there have been several instances where these requirements have resulted in low bids being disqualified and the state paying more for the contracts. These new procedures would prevent the disqualification of low bids for minor technicalities and save the state money. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine.
Were you planning on having people caucus before our meeting?
Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 240, creating crime of non-consensual distribution of sexual images. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is passage of the bill. The gentleman from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 240 adds a new section to Chapter 61, Article 8 of the State Code. Chapter 61, of course, the Criminal Code. Article 8 is the article which identifies and defines crimes against chastity, morality, and decency. The new section would be designated as Section 28A, and it defines a crime of the non-consensual disclosure of private, intimate images. And so a little history of this legislation, the primary sponsors of the bill are our senators from the Northern Panhandle, but this actually came about to us as a bill introduced as a drafting project by students at Bethany College who came to the Senate Judiciary Committee when we took it up and considered it and spoke and described to us the need for this legislation. The committee substitute is somewhat narrower than the original bill, drawn more narrowly for purposes of protecting certain First Amendment activities, but this defines a new crime. And basically what the crime is defined in the statute under Section B, Subsection B. Subsection A is definition. Subsection B says that no person may knowingly and intentionally disclose, cause to be disclosed, or threaten to disclose an image of another which shows the intimate parts of the depicted person or shows the depicted person engaged in sexually explicit conduct which was captured under circumstances where the person depicted had a reasonable expectation that the image would not be publicly disclosed. Subsection C identifies that offense as a misdemeanor punishable by confinement in jail up to a year, a fine of up to $5,000 or both. The second part of subsection C makes a repeat or second offense a felony with a prison sentence not more than 3 years. Fine is up to $10,000. There are a couple exemptions under subsection D. It makes clear that the section, the penalty and the definition of a crime doesn't apply when images are disclosed with the prior written consent of the person depicted. and it doesn't apply to images depicting the person voluntarily exposing himself or herself in a public or commercial setting. And it says that disclosures made through the reporting of illegal conduct or lawful and common practices of law enforcement, crime reporting, legal proceeding, or medical treatment. Subsection E contains a proviso that makes clear that telecommunications carriers are not liable for prosecution under this if they have no actual knowledge that there was non-consensual disclosure of that sort of information. Apparently, based on the testimony we heard, this has become an issue. It's sort of a statement of the times, both in terms of morality and technology, I guess, combined together. But it is apparently not unheard of when a couple breaks up under circumstances that are, unpleasant for one of them to get mad and blast out on the internet or on a cell phone or somehow private, intimate images. And so the students from Bethany who talked about us, I think it's shocking to some of us that this maybe is more common than we realize, but they convinced the committee that it was an issue that warrants some attention by the legislature and addressing, and so this bill is intended to do that. I would be happy to try to answer questions about the aspects of the bill, otherwise urge its passage.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present, and having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills on third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading?
Senate Bill 41, extending time person may be subject to probation. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 113, authorizing DEP promulgate legislative rule awarding matching grants for litter control programs. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 325, relating to crossbow hunting. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 330, relating to West Virginia Workplace Freedom Act.
The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day, retaining its place on the calendar.
The senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day, retaining its place on the calendar. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Bills on first reading. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered as having been read and advanced to second reading.
The senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered as having been read at first time and advanced to second reading. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Introduction of guest. The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of myself and the senator from Mercer, in the North Gallery, we have with us today the professional firefighters, Local 466, Princeton Fire Department. Gentlemen, if you'll please stand as I call your name. Chief Chad Bailey, firefighter Charlie Croy, and firefighter Brian Blankenship. Senate, please join me and make them welcome.
Further introductions, the senator from Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just happened to be glancing up in the gallery, and I just happened to see somebody setting up to the gallery to my left. The wife of our clerk is setting up there. If Miss Debbie would please stand, and the Senate would make her feel welcome.
Further introductions? Further introductions, the senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. With us in the gallery here today, we have a school board member from Jackson County, Mr. Steve Chansey. If he would stand, and the Senate please make him welcome.
Further introductions. Further introductions. Remarks by members. Remarks by members. Miscellaneous business. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that leave of absence be granted for the senator from Preston.
The senator from Ohio moves that a leave of absence be granted to the senator from Preston. Is there objection? Oh, excuse me. All those in Senator from Ohio moves that a leave of absence be granted to the senator from Preston. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Leave is granted. Announcements. Miscellaneous business. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move that the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? The senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This afternoon in the Senate Finance Room, we'll have a budget hearing with the Division of Corrections at 3 p.m.
The senator from Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Education will meet this afternoon at 2 o'clock in Finance. Thank you.
The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet this afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. in 210 West Wing.
The senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining will meet today at 1 o'clock in the Judiciary meeting room, and the agenda has been posted.
Further announcements? Further announcements. The senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a Labor Caucus meeting immediately following the floor session in room 330, and lunch as always.
Further announcements. The senator from Pleasance.
Yes, Mr. President. Your Confirmation Committee will meet tomorrow, Friday, February 24th at 10 a.m. in the Senate Judiciary Room 208.
The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet in the Senate Finance Room at 1 p.m.
Further announcements. The senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Select Committee on Tax Reform will meet tomorrow, February 24th, 1 p.m. in the Senate Finance Room.
Further announcements. The chair has an announcement. The following changes to the standing committees have been made. The senator from Harrison will be replacing the senior senator from the 6th on the Committee on Pensions. The senator from Harrison will be replacing the senior senator from the 16th on the Committee on Pensions. Further announcements. The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government and Organization will meet today at 2 p.m. and the agenda has been posted.
You're watching the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. This is a recording of the Senate floor session from earlier today.
Further announcements? Further announcements. If not, the question before the Senate is that the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned.
A special program tomorrow on the West Virginia Channel. We are partnering with Metro News Talkline to bring you Governor Justice's appearance with host Hoppy Kercheval to take callers' questions. A town hall discussion with Governor Jim Justice. That's tomorrow morning at 10 here on the West Virginia Channel. Take note of the call-in number. It's 1-800-773-8255. 888-765-8255. That's tomorrow at 10 o'clock here on the West Virginia Channel. And this concludes our coverage of floor sessions from the West Virginia Legislature. We'll be back at 3 o'clock this afternoon for a budget presentation by the Division of Corrections before the Senate Finance Committee. That's at 3 o'clock this afternoon here on the West Virginia Channel. Until then, I'm Beth Voorhees for the West Virginia Channel, a service of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.